Fighter Jimmy!
It's a Chou guy.
Oh, right.
Magic lies in the mind, but my blade follows my heart.
Yokuzo minasan to my Chou guide. Orewa Zero-san. In this guide, you will learn how to use the hero Chou, Chou, Wucha, whatever you want to call him. As you can see, this is a pretty long video, and the way it's broken down is as follows. Skill analysis, combos, laning, lane rotation, farming, ganking, invading, counter-invading, map sniping, defending, counter-ganking, immunity, fighting versus difficult heroes, properly exerting pressure, the build of course, and then some tips and a conclusion on him. Skill 1, also known as Yeet Kundo, is a 3-phase skill, meaning you can click it 3 times before the skill is actually consumed. On the final phase, Chou will punch the ground and make enemies in a circle area around the area of the punch to be knocked up. Completing phase 3 will also reset his second skill, Shunpo. Shunpo is more than just a dash. Scaling alongside with your extra physical attack, this skill generates a shield every time it is used, as well as making you immune to crowd control for the duration of the dash animation. You can often trigger this skill 2 times in a row due to the cooldown reset it gains from Yeet Kundo. Chou's ultimate is the Way of the Dragon. Unless you are using the King of Fighter purple hair skin, Chou will kick an enemy so far away that even Goku would be impressed. This skill is a 2-phase skill. The first phase will kick an enemy away from you, while the second phase will make you follow up and further knock up the enemy with a series of extra kicks before giving them a small final kick at the end. Finally, we have Chou's passive, called Random Damage Spike. After every 8 yards, Chou gets to deal double damage on his next basic attack, but it can't crit because that would be broken. How much is 8 yards anyway? Well, there's only one way to find out. Having many multi-phase skills helps give Chou a ton of variety when it comes to combos, but the most basic one is to have the 3rd phase of skill 1, the fist pound charged when in range of your target, using it to knock them into the air, and then using skill 2, which has now just refreshed, to fix your positioning and kick at an angle. You then finish your kill, all good, congrats, these are the basics. Things are going to get spicy from here on out. If we add Flicker into the mix, we can even manage to kick enemies who use Purify too early. All I did was simply use Flicker to make up for the lack of distance for my Yeet ground pound and then finish the combo just like the previous one. Normally, if the enemy is alone, you want to make max use of your passive and kind of always punch in between combos. This will make sure not only that your passive is used to the max, but that the passive of Endless Battle is also used as often as possible. The truth is, there should be a punch before your ultimate, since your ultimate plus a dash from skill 2 will recharge your passive, allowing for a double passive hit in less than 3 seconds due to your displacement. Here, let's try it on a Zilong who can actually take the hits. So just as an FYI, if you know an enemy is in the mid lane and you can see them on the minimap, you can use Flicker in the following way to basically come out of nowhere to gank them. You can also use Flicker during the 2nd phase of your ultimate to target more than one enemy, or if you know your kick will kill the enemy by itself and you are low on HP, you can Flicker backwards to escape any tower damage, but your enemy will still take the full damage from your ultimate. If you're trying to kill a tank and you know that no enemies are nearby to try to save them, you should try to completely maximize all damage output by punching after every skill. A full combo dealt Endless Battle passive 9 times. 9 times 687 true damage. That's 6,183 damage that ignores all armor, buddy. Also, if you know your enemy has Flicker or another dash type escape skill ready to go off as soon as your kick is over, You can save your fist pound until after your kick is done. If you do this, you must make sure to follow up both phases of your ultimate as soon as possible, because if you delay in order to get more time from your ultimate's crowd control, the cooldown on skill 1 will expire and the enemy will have a chance to escape. So let's evolve that combo a bit, shall we? We will charge our Yeet Kundo up until the ground pound, and then use Flicker to close the gap in distance. We will also aim our ultimate really fast to the designated location, use the first phase of skill 3, a quick dash from skill 2, and then follow up the second phase on the ultimate, landing the fist pound at the end. This combo requires extreme concentration and has one purpose and one purpose only: to pick a kill in the middle of a team fight. You see, the way it works isn't by making all the enemies jump up from your knockup. They are expecting that already. Instead, you use the crowd control immunity from your dash to get rid of any super fast crowd control spammers like Aurora or Saber. You finish your ultimate, and just in case a teleport lock type of opponent like Alucard or Guzhn have leeched onto you in order to kill you, when they follow you with either of their passive chase skill in Alucard's example, or skill 1 phase 2 of Guzhn's dagger tag, they will be knocked up along with your target when you punch the ground at the end of your skill 3. This will guarantee your escape without fail almost all of the time. If you use Hunter Strike, this combo will also boost your movement speed at the end, and it will also reset your dash, guaranteeing your escape without fail almost all of the time. Don't worry, I get too nervous and cannot do this combo in game myself. It's super hard and it's a ballsy move. We have reached the laning phase. Great. Now this is a bit interesting and will probably be a major letdown to a lot of you, but Chou is not the kind of hero you want to keep locked in a single lane. Apart from the routine crab fight when side laning and helping your carries farm the blue buff, Chou is literally supposed to be doing something completely different than being glued to one lane. Yes, he should be rotating, but how to rotate and when? Well, the problem is that the sections I mentioned, laning, lane rotation, farming, defending, and invading, are all intertwined. It all depends on the scenario, so I'll go over a couple of them. The first one will be ideals, then invasions, and then counter invasions. In the ideal scenario set, we have 3 options, one for each lane. Ideal scenario number 1, top lane. In this scenario, you would ideally go to top lane, cut off the enemy's minions before they reach the normal clash zone, kill their closest jungle monster, making them worried about their buff, and forcing them to farm it out of fear of it being stolen. While they're busy farming their buff, you can sneak kill the crab. By the time they come back, their tower will be defending against the second wave of minions, and the crab will be gone. After this, the flow of the game will tell you where to go, but in general, if your mid doesn't rotate to initiate a gank, you rotate to mid to set up a gank at mid. Ideal scenario number 2, mid lane. In this scenario, you accompany your mid laner while staying in the brush. Your mid laner should go to one side of the brush while you should go to another. That way, if an enemy tries to sneak up on either of you, you know which way they will be coming from, and you can use Chou's knockup to deter early game ganks as well as help your mid laner jungle fast, since you won't take as much damage from the jungle monsters as they do. Follow the rhythm of your mid laner, but both of you should go gank the most vulnerable lane first. Unless you are playing at high ELO, use a little bit of reverse psychology and go gank the harder lane, that way you remain unexpected. Ideal scenario number 3, bottom lane. In this scenario, you need to be doing something similar to what you did in the ideal top scenario, and cut off the minion wave before it reaches its final destination, for the same reasons. The only difference between this lane and top lane is the fact that the enemy has the advantage of their jungle being closer to the crab. Therefore, when trying to fight for the crab, always be wary of the brush beside the crab, because the possibility of an enemy mid laner ganking from that spot in order to steal the crab is quite high. Just in case, when contesting for the crab, make sure your third phase of skill 1 is ready to counter melee type heroes by knocking them up, or by closing the distance between you and a ranged enemy to knock them up and prevent them from damaging the crab and getting the gold buff. Now we get into invasions. This is actually quite difficult to explain, so bear with me. There are many factors to consider when playing Chou to invade enemy jungles. The first thing you must know is if the enemies have a common path they walk along the map due to the nature of the hero. If they do, like Hanzo, then you can predict where to intercept said enemy hero and steal their jungle. However, if the enemy has heroes that excel in anti-invasion stats, you wouldn't go all carelessly diving into a laning duo of Kaja and Helkurt, for example. However, with all those fine details aside, invasions can also be explained, and the chances of actually having a successful invasion can be boosted by doing something called map sniping. No, not map hack. That will get you banned. Map sniping is what I like to call abusing Moonton's map view. When you look around the map at jungle areas where enemy monsters would normally be, or Lord, or Turtle, you can sometimes see hero effects being used, but you will definitely hear sound effects from skills and basic attacks. All you simply have to do is move your field of vision to an area of interest, listen for sound effects, and then use that information to plan accordingly. I recommend you quickly map snipe your target monster, and then quickly analyze the other monsters in that area. Sometimes, the enemy mid laner could be farming a monster close to the enemies you are trying to invade, and by default that will turn the tide of the battle 2 versus 3, so just be careful out there. If you get really good at map sniping, you don't even have to invade, and can simply steal monsters with the knockup from skill 1 alone. But things don't always go as planned. So what if the enemy is the one being aggressive and invading you? How do you defend from that? Well, in these cases, you would hope your team can adjust to the invasion by making sure that all lanes stay clear, while gathering support to invade the enemy's opposing lane. But let me explain this a little bit better. So if you're being invaded by a Kaja, a Grok, and an Angela, and they are trying to steal the blue buff on the left side on the map, and you see their mid laner is clearing the mid wave, while there is another single enemy hero clearing the bot lane, you would have to make sure a couple of things kind of happen. You need to not waste any time and go for their buff yourself, along with your mid laner. The top left buff is what you're aiming for. You will help your mid laner steal that buff and help them escape. Remember, you have a knockup at the very least. If you farm the buff and reach level 2, you will also have 2 dashes, crowd control immunity during those dashes, as well as a flicker just in case, fully loaded up and ready to go. Hopefully your team can regroup near the mid lane to do a counter gank on the enemy team who thinks they're chasing a weak mage and an early game Chou. So what the heck is counter ganking anyways? Well, it's similar to baiting but with a twist. See, when you bait, you generally have low HP and make enemies take risky actions they normally wouldn't take unless they can secure a kill. Counter ganking, on the other hand, is literally having the complete wit to actually turn an enemy gank around and making them get a run for their money. The way you do this with Chou is very similar to the final combo I showed you previously. You must be able to go into an enemy team, you must be able to immune crowd control effects, and you must be able to pick out the highest risk enemy from the whole bunch and either kill them or place them right into your team's hands. There are, of course, many things I can't explain about Chou properly, so I'll leave you in the capable hands of a Chou main, Sayano, also known as Saya.
Hey guys, I'm Sayano or Saya, the good friend of Zero that's always tagging along in his videos. Pleasure to be here, and with the introduction out of the way, let's dive straight into the special mentions about Chou. There will be 3 parts of this section that we will be covering. Immunity, dealing with different types of opponents / their heroes, and exerting pressure. First off, we have immunity. What do I mean by immunity? I mean being able to immune crowd control skills via Chou's second skill, Shanpo. During the dash animation of this skill, Chou is immune to all types of crowd control, aside from Franco's hook, Zealong's flip, and Franco's ultimate, as these crowd control skills last longer than Chou's dash animation. Aside from that, Chou is more or less invulnerable to all stuns / silence / root skills during his second skill dash animation. This is a key piece to being able to use Chou properly and maximize his potential. I will not be showing you how to do all these types of crowd control immunity due to time constraints. However, you can find most of them out on Unexpected YouTube channel, where he goes into the specifics of the timing of certain immunes and such, link in the description below. I will be covering the basics needed to dodge the most common crowd control skills, which are stuns. Key thing to note here is that Chou is only immune to crowd control during the animation of the dash. For this reason, the direction of the dash you use for dealing with oncoming crowd control matters a lot. Projectile type control skills such as Cyclops ult, Johnson's skill 1, Eudora's skill 2, you dash forward for the easiest immune. This is because you are saving time since the projectile is coming towards you and you are going towards it, so the chances of your dash animation ending before the projectile hits you is the least. However, if you can't afford to dash forward into chasing enemies or the such, you can also immune the stun by dashing to the side, especially to a wall. The timing on this needs to be a little bit more precise, but it's still fairly easy as most projectiles come at you fairly fast, so by mid-animation it would hit you. However, the hardest in immune is backwards, or dashing forwards with your back to the projectile. The timing on this needs to be extremely precise due to the fact you are putting more distance between you and the projectile, causing the chances of it hitting you during the animation to be much less likely. Also, for skills like Alice's root, dashing outwards to the side is harder to immune than dashing forward inwards towards Alice. Meanwhile, heroes like Johnson and Algius are very to immune since they come at you at a fairly easy pace to dash to the side or forward. However, backward dashes is another story. Backward dashes are just very hard in general. Now that we have covered how to immune, why is it important? Being able to immune crowd control during team fights and engages is critical to show success. Pretty much every team has a crowd controller, a peeler to help their marksmen or mages. Sometimes, even the targets you're focusing on are the crowd control. Since Chou is always engaging and diving under towers and such, it's very critical that he's able to get in, avoid crowd control so he doesn't take more tower damage than he needs to, and kick out his target. Or towards late game, when the enemy has a lot of bursts in their damage in their arsenal. Unless you're playing tank Chou, in which case a failed dive is less risky, but it's still bad towards late game if you do get crowd controlled during the dive. If you get stunned during the dive or fail to get the second part of your ult activated on the way out due to you getting stunned, chances are you're dead and the enemy that you kicked may survive due to a dash skill or something. How do we prevent this? We sync Chou's ultimate and his skill 2 together. When engaging with the typical doubled phase skill 1, then skill 2 followed up with the last phase of skill 1 and ult, you have enough window of time to use skill 2 again, which was reset by completing the 3 stages of skill 1, Jikando, in any direction. After casting the second skill 2, you hit ult again for the second phase of the ultimate. This method can save you from instant stuns and taking loads of damage via the shield generated by skill 2, and it's also an easier way to get a distance on your kick. Alright, now that we have covered immunity and how to use it, we can apply it to different situations and talk about heroes that make it hard for Chou to engage or to fight. 2 rules of thumbs here for engaging enemies as Chou. We'll call one advanced and one basic. The basic rule of thumb for engaging with Chou is to avoid clear crowd control so you don't get stopped in your combo and try to engage only when you have a clear shot with your teammates, or you can burst them with a full combo. The advanced rule of thumb is a bit wordy and hard on the mind, so feel free to ignore what I'm about to say and stick to the first rule of thumb if you're not comprehending what I'm about to say. So, if you're feeling a bit advanced and want to achieve the next level of Chou, when engaging you need to always be thinking, is that person the highest threat? Will there be another person with a higher threat level that will come? Do my teammates have their skills ready? Can I utilize the tower? Will I get instant crowd controlled and die upon engage? You should be able to run through all these questions quick enough to not waste time, but with enough thought so that you're just not engaging and using up all your skills just to die to a fanny afterwards because you used your ultimate already. If you've come to the conclusion that you shouldn't engage, then don't, or just poke instead. Bait them out instead of a full tilt engage. Never try to engage solo unless you're overwhelmingly fed and can burst the target. Now onto the actual enemies that give Chou problems when engaging. There are many types of these heroes, such as Diggy, Martis, Mino, and Ruby. These types of heroes have skills that can either disrupt Chou from using his second phase on ult, or stopping his engage altogether. This is where the combo of ultimate and skill 2 comes in really clutch, as it can immune peels such as Martis' skill 2 second phase knockup, or Ruby's skill 2 insta stun. However, with heroes like Mino, there is no real way to immune it, as his ultimate rage mode knockup is 3 times. So it's important to be conservative and not just dive willy-nilly all the time. Same thing with Diggy. Thanks to his powerful ultimate, you can't always just dive as the second you come in. Since Diggy can pop ult, no one is crowd controlled, you get stunned, and then you get bursted. Heroes like Harley and Roger should also be avoided and not be engaged unless you're very fed and can burst them as a fighter/assassin, since they both have the potential to fight back hard. Harley is capable of bursting a fighter Chou, and Roger has enough damage and sustain to come back from the brink of death. But as a tank, you should always try and be up in heroes like Harley's face all the time, just to stall time and prevent them from diving in and killing a carry. But you shouldn't engage on Roger unless your teammates are ready to kill, since he can shred a tank fairly quick if built right. Basically, dealing with different heroes comes down to intuition and experience on the subject. The more you know how to deal with other heroes and Chou, other heroes and their builds, the better you can fight them as Chou. Last but not least, we have the pressure zone. But what does it mean to exert pressure? Pressure, or battlefield prowess, which is another way of saying it, is basically the zone of control that you have around you, especially as a Chou player. It's like knowing the range of a football player in sports. You can't just throw the football all willy-nilly, since it can get intercepted if within a range of an interceptor. That's what pressure is. As a Chou player, it's important to exert as much pressure as possible. However, there are exceptions to this. We will be exploring how to exert a concentrated area of pressure and how to exert an overwhelming amount of pressure on only selected targets. First off, what is the difference? A concentrated area of pressure means that you're not really engaging, but instead you're always ready to intercept an enemy dive. You're walking around your carry, ready to peel enemies off them, near a tower but not in the tower. This form of pressure is for high stakes situations and is only usually done as a tank due to the squishiness of a fighter/assassin build on Chou. This type of pressure is strong as enemies that see you have your skill 1 charged will be more reluctant to dive, especially if you're near a tower. The other type of exerting pressure is select targets. You pick a few targets, or one tends to work best, and zone in on them. You make sure the second they are within your reach, you're on them, if possible kicking them into your teammates and killing them. Otherwise, you always want to stall their time as much as possible. Make sure they don't reach your teammates, kicking them away if needed. Just make sure that they don't touch the team. This sort of pressure is usually only done against Fanny players and when the enemy team only has one major threat, for example 4 tanks and 1 mage. This sort of pressure may also take you away from your carry, so it's not exactly recommended if there's multiple types of carry heroes on the enemy team. Now before I finish up, however, there are a few things I like to mention about the build I'm using. As of this moment, I'm currently playing fighter/assassin Chou the most, and not really touching tank Chou at all. However, if I had to play tank Chou, I'd most likely go among the lines of Wizard Boots, Athena Shield, Brute Force Breastplate, Immortality, Courage Bulwark, and Demon Navin. This build is really good in my opinion because it gives you high mobility, it gives you good defense, and it's just overall, I like the build. I like Courage Bulwark a lot. If used right, it can be really strong. But if used wrong, it can be kind of doo-doo, but it's a give or take situation. For the most part though, I am running Bounty Hunter Emblem Chou with Wizard Boots, Blade of Despair, Endless Battle, Hunter Strike, Immortality, and Blade of Despair again. I really like this build since post Blade of Despair you can be pretty aggressive due to your sudden power spike, as well as you get a decent amount of shield on skill 2. I like to run Blade of Despair first over Endless Battle due to the fact Endless Battle just doesn't give me the same amount of damage, gives me low sustain and no shield at all. The true damage is also low due to the fact that there's no high damage backing up Chou yet. Hunter Strike afterwards, it's just a cheaper version of Blade of Despair, not really there for the movement speed, but it can proc the passive of extra movement speed, but it's not really there for that. It's just a cheaper version of Blade of Despair. Then we will follow up with Immortality to prevent mage bursts as well as the helps with dives and survivability in general. You can go Athena Shield on this one if you want. I personally like Immortality, but Athena Shield is a super great item as well, so you can go for that as well. And then lastly, we follow up with another Blade of Despair for more oomph on the damage and the shield. At this point, you may need to be more careful with your engages, as if you get focused, you will get bursted fairly quickly. At this point, it's okay if you sell a Hunter Strike for another defensive item like Brute Force Breastplate. It's perfectly fine. And that was Chou's special mentions, things you wanted to know in order to become a more keen Chou player. I'm Saya, and I'm glad I could make an appearance here. Now back to our main host, Zero.
Thank you, Sayaya. Now I may not have many tips for Chou, but I'll leave you with the best one I know. In a similar fashion to what Saya mentioned before, the biggest tips for Chou are to have a keen sense of awareness. Things like always keeping your ult handy when the enemy has Minsithar, or being able to knock back a group to peel enemies away and still escape safely. All of these come with experience. My personal tip to you, if you're having a difficult time fighting a certain hero with Chou, is to learn the problem hero. For example, if you're having problems fighting Harley mains when you use Chou, buy Harley if possible and learn to play him. Doing this lets you get a real feel for Harley's cooldowns, his habits, and his techniques. This will mentally prepare you since you are no longer thinking about how am I going to get this Harley, since you will be thinking, I know what Harley will do, so I will do this to catch him off guard. If you can't afford to buy the hero you want to counter, try to get a friend in custom to practice against with said hero. Thanks for sticking with me until the end of the video. Mastering Chou and being able to properly use him against almost any lineup requires tons of experience and timing. Since he is one of the cheaper 24,000 battle point heroes, Chou has always had a great appeal to many players who are looking for a strong hero that doesn't cost 32,000 battle points. Hopefully you learned quite a bit from this guide and can become a strong Chou user. You guys stay awesome. Zero out.